All right, hi everyone. We're gonna start now. Glad to see that there are so many people here. I'll try to make this quick because I know everyone wants to leave. So, yeah, we're gonna go over JavaScript today. Um, Here are some announcements. Yeah, you can read them yourself. Uh, yeah, we're gonna send out grade reports by early next week, so look out for those, and we'll also release the final project soon. The rest of the stuff is like the usual. Okay, yeah. So the overview is that we've gone over HTML and CSS so far. So the last part we need to teach you guys of this course is just JavaScript. So we're gonna basically go over like what is JavaScript in this lecture and how we use it. So JavaScript is like a programming language, which is very different than HTML or CSS. HTML and CSS are basically just used to kind of like tell the screen what to display, whereas JavaScript, you can actually add some like functionality to like what your website can do. So the main goal of writing JavaScript code is to add interactivity to our pages. So you might have run into like some issues in your midterm where you couldn't like add functionality. Like say you wanted like an image carousel, you click and the next image shows up. You can't do that with just HTML and CSS very easily. So JavaScript will help like implement that, and also like other things like pop-up dialogues, pretty much like hamburger menus, pretty much everything. It's also very useful in the industry for like backend stuff, but that's like kind of like out of the scope of this class. So yeah, so when we talk about interactivity, we usually think of like we add a feature in order to change something when the user does something. So you can kind of follow this format, like when the user clicks on either a button, link, or image, then you want to do something to the HTML or CSS, which is like what is displayed on the screen. And it's important to always think about what you want to accomplish before you start coding, because if you just start coding JavaScript, then like you might fall down like a rabbit hole of like Stack Overflow and stuff where you don't really know what you're doing. So make sure you know what your intended goal is. Yeah, so some examples of this. If you want the picture to increase its size when the user clicks on an image, say it's like some pop-up or whatever, then when you click on it, you want to like change its CSS width. More examples, like if you want to click a button, change it to like dark mode, then what you can do is change the CSS color and background color to like flip from like white and then black for the text, and to be like black for the background and then white for the text. Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, so if you want to like change the content, if you will click on the tab and you want to change the content, you can like hide certain divs with display none. So if you want to hide the first div and show the second div, you can do that in JavaScript as well. Yeah, display none. If you want to have like some counter on your website for some reason, then you can just have like a variable in JavaScript that stores it. And then you can just increment the text inside that div. These are just some examples. There's pretty much like endless examples of what you can do with JavaScript. But yeah, that's what we're going to teach you. And then, yeah, so I guess JavaScript's role in the web page is not really like how to display things, because that's HTML and CSS's job. But the goal of using JavaScript is basically to like edit the HTML and CSS to change how the website looks. So anything you write in JavaScript won't automatically show up on the page unless you modify the HTML or CSS. And then basically JavaScript for now will just live in the Chrome DevTools, which is, I'll show you at the end, but it's basically just like a part of the Chrome where you can see like the console, and that's basically all your JavaScript code there. Yeah. Similar to how we link the CSS for like in the HTML file, we also need to like link this JavaScript file. So by convention in this class, we just name the JavaScript file script.js, and then you can just add a script tag in the same place that you add like the link to the CSS file. So this would be like in your head, I think. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of like the introduction to JavaScript. Now we're going to go into like the specific concepts that we're going to teach you. So an introduction to variables is probably like the most important thing in JavaScript, or like any language in general. So there's two parts of creating variables. There's declaration and then initialization. So declaration tells the program that like I want to create something basically, and initialization is like what that something is. We'll get into more detail about this on the next slide. So yeah, I guess in like math classes, you see like let k be 5. Um, like the let k part is kind of like the declaration, and then 5 is like the initialization, like the initial value you want the variable to have. Yeah, so this is basically the same thing. Yeah, you can also redeclare variables and reassign their values sometimes, but we'll get into more of that in the next slides too. Yeah, this is kind of the syntax that you'll see when you're coding in JavaScript. So you have let and then some type of variable name. So it could be like name or age if we're trying to like represent a person. And then you just set it equal to some initial value. So in this case, the initial value for name is Joe and the initial value for age is 20. Um, and yeah, you might see that like Joe is stored in like with quotes around it. So if you want to store anything that's not like a number, you need to put like quotes around it. So like if you want to store like 20.5 or something, you don't need quotes because it's a number. But if you want to store any like string, which is like any text, then you'll have to have quotes around it. And then let means that we're creating a block scope variable. We'll get into scoping like in the next 3 slides. Yeah, just like for this class, just use let to like declare all your variables. Yeah. So variable scoping, there's like var, which is like, we don't recommend that you use it in this class, but we're teaching it to you for, I guess, your own knowledge, if that's any use. So each variable has like a scope, which is like the environment that you can access that variable from. So we have var, let, and const. Var is basically, so we have this example like var name is equal to Joe. So this variable is declared like globally, and you can access it within functions, outside of functions, and pretty much anywhere in the code. And this variable friend is declared locally because it's within the function brackets. So if we want to access friend like outside of the brackets, we won't be able to do that, and JavaScript will throw an error. And then if we do something like this, where we redeclare var name equals Tim inside the function, this will change the globally declared name variable that we have. So anytime we try to access name again, it'll spit out Tim instead of spitting out Joe. It's kind of confusing because like var is basically like a global variable, and then whatever you change within that function changes the global variable as well, which gets kind of confusing when you have a lot of different variables. That's why we don't really recommend that you use var that much. A much better option is using like let, because when we use let, it's like block scoped. So in this case, we basically have like the same code. We just replace var with let. And I guess like by definition, like a block is just anything within the curly braces of whatever function there is. So this is like the same code that we have. Let's see. But in this case, name is not global because we didn't use the var keyword. Since we used let, if we want to redefine let or the name inside the function, the name inside the function is now Tim, but outside the function, it's still Joe. So this way you can have like multiple copies of variables that are named the same thing by using let, which makes it easy because you only need to look inside your own function to see what potential values there are for the variable. Does anyone have any questions about that? Or cool. Const is basically also block scoped, but it's basically a variable that you can't change. You can't really like reinitialize it to like name equals Tim. This is pretty much useful for like if you want to display something. Say you have like 3 images you want to display, and you do like const number of images equals 3. It's basically something that you don't want to change ever, and it's just pretty good like practice to use const if you're not going to change a variable. But if you replace all these consts with like let, like the same functionality would happen. So yeah. So basically just use let like whenever you're coding stuff in this class. Yes, yeah. So the next topic is string concatenation, which is like sounds kind of complex, but it's basically just like putting things together, like putting words together. So we can basically add strings together with like a plus sign. So text is always in quotes. So an example is like we have this variable name that's equal to Nicholas. We try to create this new variable greeting, and in order to like combine all of these strings together, or like this text together, we can basically just do like plus sign. So this would output like howdy Nicholas like exclamation point. Um, yeah, and then pay special attention to the fact that like howdy has like a space at the end. Adding plus signs will not automatically add a space into your text. So if you didn't have any spaces, then it would just be like howdy Nicholas with no space in between. So if you want spaces, you have to put them in the quotes themselves. But this is basically a way for you to like combine different strings together, which would be useful if like you're having like a form input or something, and then you want to like display what the person put in that form. That'll be useful for that. Um, yeah. So if you want to make like JavaScript show up in the console, which is basically like where it lives right now, because we're not going to teach you how to like add interactivity until like next week, you can just do console.log. I'll show you guys the console at the end, but console.log basically prints something in like the console in like Google Chrome or wherever, and it basically just prints out whatever you pass in. So you can do console.log of like a number, a string, pretty much anything, and then that's just what's going to be outputted in the console. Yeah, alert is also a different way. So say you like want to make like a login form or something, and they put in like an invalid password. You might want to use this alert thing to show like it'll basically pop up on their screen and say like, oh, this is an invalid password. But I guess in this example, they just show an alert saying howdy miles, which I guess doesn't have that much use, but it's there for your knowledge. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Can anyone tell me what sentence is equal to after running all this code? Yeah, you're right. I think we all love WDD. Yeah, so this basically takes the person variable, which is I, adds it to emotion, which is love, and then the course is WDD. But notice how the result has no spaces in between it because we did not include spaces in the quotes. So if you wanted it to be properly spaced out, you would include a space after person, a space after emotion, and then a space. Actually, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and if you want to like have a pop-up for that sentence, you could just do alert. Yeah, yeah. So it'll look like that. We could also do like basic math. Um, yeah, I guess this is pretty basic. It's just like you do let age, and then instead of like just declaring to one thing, you can declare it to like a or initialize it to like an arithmetic, like a bunch of arithmetic operations together. So you do like 20 plus 5. You could do like 20 minus 2.5. You could like do multiplication. So it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then that like percent sign is like modulus, which is like when you do division, it's basically the remainder. So if you like 5 mod 3, it's like 2 because like there's 2 left over after you divide it. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Oh, what happens if you like mix up bar and let?
If you mix up var and let, well, I guess it depends on like what scenario you mix them up in. I guess in this class, just use let and then nothing will go wrong. But if you want to make your life harder, you can use var too. But yeah, it just depends on the situation. Any other questions? Cool. Oh yeah, this is probably the biggest piece of syntax that you'll see today. This is basically what like declaring a function is, and a function is basically like anything you do in like math. So like say you have like an input and you wanted to like return something, right? So we use this function keyword to like indicate that we're declaring a function, and we have like the function name. Usually you want to have the function name be like something like a verb because usually the function will be like doing something. So I guess in this case we're like squaring the variable. The things in the parentheses are called the parameters. That's basically what you're putting into the function. So whenever you call square, you have to pass in a number so it knows like what the variable x is. And whatever number you pass in, that's what x will be set to. And then the return statement is basically what you want to return from this function. So in this case, you just do like x times x, and then you return that variable to like wherever you called the function square. Yeah. So if we want to make like some of our own functions, we could make a function that like returns double of an input. So this would just be like function double n. Yeah, it takes in the parameter n and returns 2 times n, so it doubles it. If we want double the input plus 1, then you do like double plus 1 n, and then it's like 2 times n plus 1. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, this is basically like the top part is basically like what I said in the previous slide, and then the bottom part is how you would actually like call the function itself. So if we wanted to square like the number 5, we would just do like square parentheses 5, and then that will jump to the function square, and then it'll compute the result inside. So it'll be like 5 times 5, and it returns that result. And then that's what y will be initialized to after returning from the function. And then you can also pass in variables. So in this case, y is equal to 25. So if you do square of y, then it'll be like 25 times 25, which is like some number that's pretty big. But yeah, that'll be like initialized to z. Yeah, this is how you like call the function. So whenever you call the function, think of it like where the code is being read, the code will jump to that function, and then when it returns, it'll go back to the place where it was called. Yeah, so these are the functions we declared earlier. And who could tell me what first number is equal to after this call? Yeah. Oh, so good. It's 4, yeah. Oh yeah. What about after this call? Well, we pass in the first number, which is equal to 4. Yeah, so it'd be 9, but it was very close. Yeah, so second number would be equal to 9. Yeah, that's pretty much how you would use a function. Yeah, this is basically kind of like take you through. Oh yeah, you can also use functions inside of functions. This is where it gets kind of complex. So this is basically the same thing that we did earlier, where we did 2 times x plus 1. But in this case, we're calling double of x inside new double plus 1. So basically what we do when we call like this first like double is like the same. If we call new double plus 1 first number, it'll go into like the function new double plus 1, and it'll see like, oh, double x is called within that function. So then it'll go into that function and pass in whatever x was. So in this case, x would be 4. So then you go into double, you do return 2 times 4, so returns like 8. And then you go back to where it was called, which is in like the return statement for function new double plus 1. So then it'd be like 8 plus 1, which is 9. So the result is the same. You could just call functions within other functions. You could also call like a function can also call itself, but like that's like not that important. Yeah. Yeah. Functions don't always have to like return a value. You can use a function to like do some specific thing. Like say you want to like mutate like the CSS or like the HTML or something, you can just call the function and then do the mutation inside. In this case, we're just popping up like an alert symbol. So we do show meeting, pass in miles, and then this will basically do the same thing where it alerts, does like alert miles. And I guess like a reason why we might want to put this code inside a function is that functions are really like reusable. So say you wanted to like have like 50 alerts saying howdy miles, then like you can just call the function 50 times. You don't have to like copy and paste like let greeting equals howdy plus and then like, keep on doing alerts. You could just call the function multiple times. That's basically what functions are used for, like repeatable code. Yeah. Also, if you want to add comments to your code, comments are good if you want to like if you're like working and then you want someone to understand what you did. You can do comments with like a slash, or you can do a multiple line comment with like a slash and an asterisk. and then finish it with like an asterisk and then a slash. But in this class, we don't require you to write comments. It's fine. It just might be useful if you're like testing code and you want to comment out of line so it doesn't run. But yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, what does something hold after this code runs? Yeah, this is a tough one, so I think I might have to explain it myself. Yeah, 100 times, that's good. Oh, yeah, so the course is assigned to like WDD, and then num is assigned to 10. And then in the function, we do num equals num plus 10. See, you don't have to like redeclare num with like let, because num is basically like the parameter that's passed in. So you do num equals num plus 90, which makes it 100. And then you concatenate the strings. So I have taken whatever course it is, what it 100 times, and see like they added like the space in between the course and the number. That's if you want to like, I guess, have it display properly. And then it returns the result into like returns the result and then it assigns it to something. So if you do this, like nothing will actually like print or anything, but if you do like console.log and then pass in something, then it'll print. Like I've taken WDD 100 times. Does anyone have any questions? All right, cool. Wait, I want to show you guys the console. Wait, this is Safari? All right, the console will be shown next time. Oh yeah, can you pull up the console?
Better. Yeah, I think I have to open up the website.
Oh yeah, so you get to the, like the DevTools with inspect element.
Oh, it's here.
Is it still Safari?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so this is like the console tab. Oh yeah, so it's like you can see the thing that I'm typing at the bottom. So if you like write console.log and you like your script.js file, then whatever output it has will open up like here.
Light switch.
Oh.
Ah.
It's crazy. So yeah, so if you do console.log in like your script.js file, then whatever it'll log will show up like in this console section. So we can even do like, I guess we could do like console.log and then like 5 or something. Then you can see like the output is 5. The undefined is basically like what's returned from like that call, but I guess console.log that doesn't like return anything, so that's why it's undefined. You can also like console.log like text, so it'll basically print out I love WDD. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about how to get to the console or what the console is for? All right, cool. All right, Chris, it's your turn.
How do we get to the HCD?